Cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 113 Burndown for 11/29. I've added the minutes, link to the minutes in the meeting, in the chat notes here. And as usual, this session is being recorded and will go to YouTube shortly after that. Let's get started. As for the release status and timeline, I moved it to green because we are now officially in code thaw and out of code freeze. Code thaw went into effect around like 7:45 or so last night. We had a few last minute drama around the E2E test, a new E2E test that went in, was in a bad state and had to be reverted versus taking in the fix in the last minute. So we handled that and did our final fast forward from master to 113 and lifted code freeze late last night. After that, watching CI signal as of this morning, blocking was mostly green, but looks like we had, again, a slew of flakes hit us, specifically around storage. I'll wait for Josh to talk about it in CI. Upgrade jobs do look green, but they are chronically flaky. But I did notice at least one run after, around the time of, after code freeze lifted, we did get a green run in all of the upgrade jobs once. So I'm assuming whatever failures we might see going forward can safely be assumed to be from master, unless we do see some systematic failures. As of now, release is still on track for next Monday, 12/3, pending any CI signal issues. Tomorrow, we plan to cut our second RC. Hopefully, it'll have the latest release notes because the draft is almost finalized and had a lot of reviews yesterday. So that's all from the broader release update from my end. Any questions before we move on to the individual sections? Okay. With that, let's start with test infra. Cole or anybody around from test infra? If not, Christoph pinged a link to Tide, to the merge queue. It's been steadily hovering around 50 plus PRs in the queue since we lifted freeze. I don't see any incoming request as critical urgent for 113 yet. So if they do come, we will handle it on a need basis and then cherry pick into 113 if needed. But other than that, I think Tide is keeping up with the backlog. Let me put a link to that in the notes. Okay. Let's move on to CI signal. Josh?
Yeah. So we have our usual snowstorm of flakes. Right. Flakier than Tahoe in January. But nothing new. Last night we reversed out a new CSI test that was failing in a bunch of the upgrade tests. We have right now SIG release 113 blocking is red because of COS slow and COS serial. Both of those, Michelle is pretty sure she has a handle on why we're having all of these random storage test failures, which has to do with the test being based on waiting for an event message rather than testing for successful deployment, if you follow me, which is a problem when you deploy a driver and then immediately try to schedule a pod to it. Because if you're polling for that, you get a whole bunch of messages, well, the driver's not available. And then when And the kubelet is designed to start dropping messages if it gets too many. So as a result, sometimes the message that the particular test is waiting for never shows up. And that would certainly be consistent with the behavior that we've observed, which is random timeouts. Like if you look at GCE COS 113 slow, we have like this diagonal line of random timeouts, mostly on storage tests, going across the line. It would also explain why we're getting random timeouts on some other tests, because if those are looking for events too, and the kubelets are getting flooded with too many events, then they would experience timeouts as well, although the network fail there is not actually a timeout. It's yet another one of our lovely GCE network problems.
Yep.
So, which are also not new or even increasing in frequency for that matter.
Yeah, we have, okay, we can come to it once maybe, but Zhihong debugged it, reproed it locally, and opened a GCE issue where he was pretty much sure that it was a service that was returning a different version.
Yeah. So making our test board significantly less flaky at this point would require two things. Number one, figuring out what's up with GCE and networking. And number two would be honestly refactoring across our test suite, at least the storage tests, possibly many other tests as well, to have them not depend entirely on event messages to determine success failure. Which is obviously not something that's happening in the next 3 days. I mean, basically what we're at is we have no unexplained failures. We have lots of flakiness. The flakiness is all known. It's very worrisome, but if we were to hold up release to reduce flakiness, we'd be looking at holding it up until January.
Mm-hmm. My only question is, looks like these are all pretty much clearly understood by Michelle, or at least she has a working theory of why we would see these. But are these, does it have any material user impact? And if so, is it captured accurately in the release notes? I know
Yes, there should be a release note about driver registration delay.
It was added in a known issue, and I'm sure Saad also captured it when he reviewed the draft yesterday.
So I ended up not putting it in those release notes. I'm going to put it in the release notes of the external sidecar container because it's not actually an issue with any of the Kubernetes code. And the sidecar containers are released at a separate cadence, meaning you could have a 113.0 release with a sidecar container where this is fixed and it doesn't actually apply. Okay. So we're going to capture it in the release notes of the sidecar container.
I'd kind of like to have a brief note in the main release notes as well.
At least pointing to the sidecar one.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we can say if you use it with this specific version of the sidecar container, it is known to have this issue.
Yes.
Okay, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
Josh, I know you have been paying a lot of attention to the flakes, and you had a list of sort of all the individual tests that were seeing flakes, at least for the storage ones. Is there a list that includes all of the tests that have flaked so that we can sweep those to see if they are also making bad assumptions about event handling?
I was actually, hold on, I had a spreadsheet for chronic flakes.
Okay.
It is not updated. It is not updated since we started having the storage issues.
Okay.
So it is not by any means complete, but these are all things to actually. It was more composed, looking at. Let's keep track of the things that we already know are flakes so that when they reappear, we don't assume they're a new failure.
Sure. I would like to make sure that the SIG owners for those tests know that there are issues with them, and if possible, to start addressing the test changes in 114 before other code changes are made. Mm-hmm. that would give us more confidence that it was just this event issue. So I know storage team is all over this. I didn't know if there were other swaths that we needed to sweep and notify people of as well. Ideally, like now that 114 changes can go in.
Yeah, Michelle just came up with this theory this morning. So no, we haven't looked at, nobody else has looked at anything else, but it would explain a whole bunch of the flakes that we've seen increasing in frequency over time, because obviously the more tests we add and the more stuff we add to the cluster, the worse the event messaging problem is going to get.
Yep.
So one of the things to actually do, there's two things to do as post follow-up for 114 and beyond. Number one would be sort of complete this list of known frequent flakes and then look at those individual tests to see if they have event messaging issues. And the other thing actually would be, one of the things I think we've learned from CSI here is, if we're going to take a major sort of in-tree component for Kubernetes and move a plugin architecture to GA and move a whole bunch of main tests to that plugin architecture, that needs to happen at the beginning of the development cycle, because it will cause new problems to crop up with the tests.
Good retrospective feedback.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if we could add this to the retro.
Yeah. I need to find the retro. But
let me link it here. I want to push up the retro. I don't know how to do the creative. Okay, there's the link to the retro. I added it with the release timeline. Okay. Move on. If we've discussed it,
yeah.
Cool. Issues. Nico's back today. Nico.
Yeah. Hello. Happy Godthor. And there are two outstanding issues, both with networking and IPVS. I think the first one is let me link them in the Zoom.
Yeah. These were the pending PRs that were marked critical urgent, right?
Yeah, they are both about networking and IPVS. So this one is fixes node port services in clusters that use IPVS instead of IP tables and are only IPv6, which is a quite rare combination. And like realistically, I don't think that any production user will just jump to 13.0 with this kind of setup. So it can be merged for a patch release, I think.
Yeah, and I think there was a comment saying they're okay moving it to 114 too. So yeah, if you could move it and hold it, that'd be great, Nico.
Sorry, I closed the camera, it's lagging. So you said to unhold it and merge it?
Move it to 114 and then unhold it. I had held it.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Okay. And the next one, to link it.
Yeah.
It's again about IPVS and graceful termination of UDP flows. I think this is more relevant if it's going to go in, but I'm not exactly sure of how gravely important it is.
Yeah. I left a comment there. I would expect them to reply. Yeah, I'm not aware of how the criticality of this at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, I held these PRs just in case so that I can get some reply. But I believe even if it merges, it needs to be cherry picked into 113 at this point. So I don't think my me unholding this would actually affect 130. but I just put on a hold because I wanted to get more clarity on this since it was on 13 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think by tomorrow we can know about this, if needs a cherry pick or not.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, these are the only 2 ones.
Cool. Thank you. Next up, docs. Jim or Tim?
I don't see Tim on here and haven't talked to him in a couple of days, so I don't want to misspeak for the current status of docs, but I believe there's still some PRs getting reviewed for docs, and I recently pinged Tim to see if we've opened up the PR to merge the 113 branch into master, and haven't heard back yet, so that's where we're at as far as I know.
Okay. I can sync up with Tim later today. I know moving the meeting a little early kind of threw a few people off, but I'll sync up with him. If there, Jim, would it be possible for you to at least list the PRs that are still pending merge?
Yeah, there's a doc that I believe was shared with you and Tim. I'm not sure if that's still what we're working off. I can throw it in the chat here.
Mm-hmm. That would be great because I had asked for a link yesterday so that I can follow along. I don't find it in the minutes from yesterday.
Okay, just send it in chat there, and I said, I hope it's the same doc that you're looking for. It was updated 2 days ago by Tim.
Okay. All right. Let me follow up on this and with Tim offline. Okay. The next item here is release notes. Mike couldn't make to the meeting, but looks like the final draft is at least a copy of that. It landed yesterday. We had, as mentioned, we had a bunch of comments and reviews, and those were resolved and merged late yesterday. So mostly it's LGTM, and once we cut our RC2 tomorrow, we should be able to see the latest changelog there. And release notes team will continue to make minor edits until we release on Monday. And from comms side, I think everything is on track. We are having a couple of media messaging meetups today and tomorrow for some initial media posts, and hopefully more to come after the release next week. So that's it from me. Anything else anybody wants to bring up? Questions? If not, I'll give 10 minutes back in time for the community meeting. Thanks all. I'll catch you in Slack and otherwise. Bye. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.